Here's a theory for you to completely disregard. In 10 years, new black rappers will be a minority. It's all happening.
Static selector.
Post Malone roiled rap fanatics recently when he told Poland's New Once that if you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, don't listen to hip hop. There's great hip hop songs where they talk about life and they spit that real shit, but right now, there's not a lot of people talking about shit. He goes on to say that hip hop is cool because it's fun and it brings people together, but that largely fell on deaf ears because during that same week, Rolling Stone released a profile piece on Post in which the Texan was asked about a confrontational conversation he had with the Breakfast Club previously. Malone took offense to Charlemagne the God asking him what he was doing for Black Lives Matter. On air, he said, "Keep making music, I don't know." This time though, according to Rolling Stone, while reflecting on that exchange, Post said that he's a victim of reverse racism and called out Charlemagne. "He's not a good person," Post said. "He hates me because I'm white and I'm different. But we're still rocking and we're still successful and he can't stop it. People are gonna hate you for what they're not gonna understand you for. Especially with the power of music, we could push past the world's flaws and make it a more beautiful place." While both quotes seem to end in an attempt at we are the world type unity, the commentary feels as coded as Make America Great Again. Think about this. Not only does Post Malone consider the genre he financially profits off of shallow, but he also views himself as a victim of reverse racism while having the #1 song in the nation and the #5 most streamed project of the year on Spotify. Only in Trump's America. Seemingly the entire culture weighed in on the word speak. Complex published a scathing piece entitled, "Here's Why Post Malone is a Problem." Twitter users like KSA said, "Post Malone and Miley Cyrus are prime exhibits to why non-black hip-hop artists should be on a 10-year probation period." Hot 97's Peter Rosenberg revoked White Iverson's hip-hop card in an emphatic IG and on-air fashion. They apparently settled their differences the next day. Rosenberg explains.
As I said yesterday, if it had been an isolated incident and that was the only misstep he'd ever had, I don't think I would have cared that much about the quote. I probably would have just been like, oh, but he meant new hip hop. The reason I kind of clung to it was because there was this series of things.
Rosenberg makes a great point in pointing out Post's previous missteps. In 2015, he told DJ Booth that he didn't want to be viewed as a rapper, even if he makes rap. Also that year, an old Vine video of Malone surfaced with him dropping N-bomb like Vietnam. Combine those two with the New Once and Rolling Stone quotes from earlier, and it's easy to see why Mr. Cornrows Fronts and Trap Beats is frequently called a culture vulture. Being labeled a culture vulture used to come with repercussions, but so far, Post's sales and his popularity haven't reflected any blowback. Since 2015, he's continued to climb the charts. I expect his next project, Beer Bongs and Bentleys, to land at #1 whenever he decides to pull the trigger. But comparatively speaking, Vanilla Ice committed much less egregious sins and his career cratered fantastically. Vanilla Ice was just a white dude who loved hip-hop and was doing something organic. Then in 1991, he went from opening up for MC Hammer to the owner of the nation's #1 album to the extreme, the nation's #1 song, Ice Ice Baby, the first rapper to ever have a #1, by the way, to a complete joke all within the span of 8 months. Biting used to be another unforgivable sin back then, and he swagger jacked Hammer's wardrobe and stage presence to the extreme.
Word to your mother.
Combine that with his failed movie named after his album, a terrible appearance in Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze, and a shakedown by Suge Knight, and he became both hip-hop and pop culture's biggest punchline. His next album, 1994's Mind-Blowin', failed to crack the Billboard 200. Think about this, from #1 to not at all. Jesus! To this day, the ballad of Robert Van Winkle remains a cautionary tale. His career disintegrated and all he did was fake street cred and sell out. He wasn't dropping N-bombs, he wasn't dissing hip-hop. In his VH1 Behind the Music, Ice talked about how his biggest misstep was separating himself from the culture. His mistake was going pop. When Eminem arrived in 1999, he was super concerned about making sure people understood that he was a part of hip-hop, that he was hip-hop. There's a great interview with the legendary Davey D. The interview takes place in 1999, right before the Slim Shady LP was released. During that conversation, he says that he just wants people to know that Slim Shady is hip-hop and that he respects the culture the whole time. Links in the description. But this is back when white rappers were both new and taboo. That was over 20 years ago. There's nothing new about white rappers, and there certainly isn't anything taboo about white rappers anymore. They're just rappers like everyone else, and all rappers used to want to be embraced by the culture. Now, when it's convenient, I'm not really trying to be boxed in. In this climate, representing the culture is optional. Danielle Bregoli, aka Bad Baby, aka Cash Me Outside Girl, gave a great interview with HipHopDX. I absolutely suggest people read it. Shout out to Kyle. But she explains how she's really just a kid who accidentally went viral off a Dr. Phil appearance. Then all of a sudden, people started hitting her up, wanting to make her into something. Here's what she said. Then they fly you out to Los Angeles and they basically put you in a little Airbnb and they take you to meet with a record label because they just want to meet you. They think that you can be an artist. They ask you if you like music, you say yes, they say, okay, we want to give you a record deal. You sound good. Are you not gonna take that?
Word to your mother.
Such an honest quote, but Bad Baby was able to parlay unintended internet acclaim into an Atlantic Records deal, leveraging rap to grab that bag while finding an audience in the process. Bregoli's racked up hundreds of millions of streams since the release of These Hoes 3 months ago, despite being lampooned by pop culture. This isn't a referendum on whether the music is awesome or awful, rather another example of how while the stereotypical rapper, the stereotype of it continues to evolve, the repercussions from separating yourself from the culture continue to dwindle. Translation: you can sell hip-hop without caring about hip-hop, being a part of hip-hop, and while dissing hip-hop, and still make money. Along with the G-Eazys and the Lil Peeps and the Lil Xans and the Lil Pumps and the Tekashi 6ix9ines as further examples of hip-hop's changing faces, Asian rappers like Kid Trunks, Rich Chigga, Higher Brothers, Chris Wu, Keith Ape are all pushing rap into new markets, all stacking hundreds of millions of streams in a relatively short time, backed by cosigns from traditional rap staples and major media outlets. Management company 88 Rising promotes Asian hip-hop artists organically through its YouTube channel and other endeavors. They'll do videos with Migos, Lil Yachty, PNB Rock, Ghostface Killah, for example, reacting to Asian MCs and their trapped-out native stylings, grabbing millions of views, revealing another fertile market. They're wildly entertaining. Check them out, links in the description. But with China's rise to global dominance, expect Asian culture to have a larger global impact on entertainment in the decades to come. Hip-hop is now the #1 music genre, and once a fresh opportunity presents itself, investors sprint to the well. But what happens when the hottest, most successful, young, new, most relevant artists no longer look like or represent for those of the past? Post Malone may very well be the prototype for the next wave of superstar copycats. I kind of feel like he grabbed 2 batons, one from Yelawolf and one from Riff Raff. Translation: when something's really successful, prepare for the attack of the clones. Here's the biggest changing variable though, net neutrality. Net neutrality has been the linchpin for rap's rise to the top of the genres. A free, open internet that democratized individuals' ability to build their own audiences through social media, through streaming sites, through their own individual outlets has been a boom to small business and to burgeoning brands, allowing all the opportunity to go global cost effectively. Unfortunately, those days about gone. We talked about this in our Screaming Fire in a Stadium piece. Check that out if you missed it. Net neutrality is the most important issue for people who live, make money off of the internet, or simply enjoy having their Netflix streaming as fast as possible. The Trump administration is in favor of weakening the laws which are aimed at maintaining a level playing field for companies on the internet, and they're about to do it. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai announced that the FCC will vote to remove net neutrality laws on December 14th, and unfortunately, they have enough votes. This measure will allow for internet service providers to throttle bandwidth as they see fit. They will no longer have to guarantee fair access to the internet. They can institute tiered systems if they choose, for example, with separate, more egregious rates for email, video, social media separately separated out. It's possible that internet access begins to be treated like cable packages. Here's your standard rate. Here's how much you need need to pay for these additional group of sites. Want these other sites over here? It's gonna cost you this much more on top. The ISPs, Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, etc. also own their own content verticals. Comcast owns NBC Universal, for example. Verizon owns Complex, for example. They'll be legally allowed to slow bandwidth to sites they don't own or operate, like Netflix or Google or YouTube, or your own personal website that you use to update your audience on your latest awesomeness. And all this is before they start consolidating, which you know is always around the corner. Regardless of alignment, it will cost markedly more to access the full breadth of the internet, to build audiences, to spread movements and messages. And which populations are most impacted most consistently when corporate taxes, tolls, and tariffs are tacked on top of costs? Underserved, marginalized communities. Translation: Black people. I can't implore enough how important this measure is. This is the most visceral definition of a job killer that this generation has seen yet. Anyone who is 17 years or younger, y'all need to hit up y'all parents and tell y'all parents to call y'all congressman and tell them that this is NAFTA for millennials. How many millennials do you know that make most of their money off of the internet? This is the equivalent of sending jobs overseas. Red teams or blue teams, this will have a comparable effect on all of our abilities to increase our audiences and make more money. Time is running out.
Word to your mother.
The point is this: I remember reading a Guardian article 13 years ago. It was kind of laughable. They were trying to figure out who exactly created rock and roll. It was a convoluted journey with no real answers, but it came down to two songs. Rocket 88 by Jackie Brenston and written by Ike Turner, which debuted in 1951. Those are two black dudes. And Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets in 1955. That's a white group. Rock and roll originated as black music, but by the 1980s and 90s and 2000s and now, it's become incredibly rare to see a black rock band. Rock and roll became rock and metal and punk and alt-rock and Nickelback, all of which represent little to nothing of the culture that created it. Many have predicted that the same would happen to hip-hop. The question's always been when and how and under what circumstances. Well, here we are, 44 years since its birth, and now the culture is more diverse than ever, but also farther away from the culture that created it. These kids don't know anything about the history. They just know that they like these songs or that they really like this artist. Rappers from every country are more common. Rappers dissing and dismissing hip-hop and dropping N-bombs while still getting passes and suffering little to no financial repercussions is more common. Hell, even hip-hop artists rapping while rocking Confederate flags is becoming more common. And next week, the internet's net neutrality, the media most responsible for the do-it-yourself economy, the boom to small business, will be stripped away, leaving marginalized communities and millions of people with limited access to information and a fragmented ability to build their own audiences. Translation: everyone's been let in the door, and now we're kicking internet freedom out. Times change like nickels and dimes. 10 years ago, Game and Gucci Mane were being clowned for their face tats. Now I'm not sure if you're allowed to rap without one. 10 years ago, YouTube was mainly cat videos. Now it pays people's rent. 10 years ago, no Instagram. 10 years ago, no Spotify. Is it crazy to think that 10 years from now, new mainstream black rappers with access to a broad audience, the largest audience, will become a minority? Aren't we kind of overdue for a new genre of music anyway? I think so. But I don't have the answer to these questions.
Static selector.
Another Saturday, it's all happening. Thank you guys for rocking with us. We really appreciate it. Every now and again, I like to do these theory pieces. I did one before on Future and how Outkast is at the center of how mumble rap came around. Links in the description. If you haven't seen it, punch yourself in the face. But I'm not saying in this piece, what I'm definitely not saying in this piece is that black rappers are gonna be extinct in 10 years from now. I'm not saying that J. Cole gonna have a problem. He ain't gonna be able to reach nobody. Nobody's gonna vote Kendrick Lamar off the island. He'll still be exalted the same way Jimi Hendrix, for example, is still exalted, the same way George Clinton is still exalted. But what I am saying, though, is that 10 years from now, with the landscape that we will be living under 10 years from now, I think new black rappers or black artists doing quintessential hip hop will be niche. which we already see some examples of that. Shout out to Conway, West Side Gun. Love those cats. But in the meantime, I think a new genre will be created. Chris Rock had this great bit on his upcoming Netflix special, which you guys will see in a couple of months if you haven't seen him on tour yet. He says price is a great way to segregate. You want to keep black people at your hotel? Charge $7,000 a night. We're going to have some sort of tiered system on the internet. It's going to be more difficult for these grassroots movements of all types to pop up. And with net neutrality being taken away, all bets are off. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Also, I really don't think that 10 years is out of the question. I mean, look how fast everything moves. And hip hop will be about 54 years old. It'll be about time to remix that narrative, just like they're doing with the Civil War. Again, let me know what you think in the comment section. Also, major shout out to Raymond McCain, Nigel Cotton, Marvin McGill, Eric Holbick. You guys have shown so much support to the show, but also to the brand. It's priceless. I thank you guys sincerely. Go ahead and follow me on social or DM me on social. I'm gonna follow you guys back. Also, take a picture with the shirts on, send them over to me. I'll put you guys in a future episode of the show. Thank you sincerely. Community overall, like and subscribe to the channel. Follow @TheCompanyMan on everything. It's all happening.
This has happened with every cultural genre. So when people get mad at me and tell me to chill out or say I'm a hater, no, I'm someone who did the research and has seen that every black form of music has been taken, appropriated, and eventually, you know what black people do? Eventually they go, enough is enough. I give up, move on to something else.
And go create something new.
Nah, I can't, I'm not okay. Now, by the way, the creators of the new part's amazing, but I grew up on hip hop. I never want it to go away. I never want it to turn into garbage. And that's why I've given other artists a hard time, because there have been moments that I get very uncomfortable. You know, it happened, I remember I gave Mac Miller a hard time when he first came out, because when I noticed a white artist with a predominantly white audience, that instantly puts my ears up a little bit to go, well, this is how it ends. This is the beginning of the end. When white artists make supposedly black music for a white audience, that's when culture dies.